The future is not a gift. It is an achievement. These were the words by Robert F. Kennedy that were printed on a poster that as an 18-year-old I had in my room. I hung this poster on the wall and it became a mantra and a core belief that I embraced as I went through most of my life. I was born the eldest of 3 sons to a fireman father and a stay-at-home mother. My father was a child of the Depression, and he instilled in all of his sons the importance of hard work, responsibility, and being kind. During my senior year in high school, I became a born-again Christian, and since then have been very serious about my faith and endeavoring to live out my life that Christ would have me to be. After high school, I attended college, and I worked nights at Taco Bell, and I delivered furniture on weekends to help pay bills. You see, working hard, having a job, and bringing home a paycheck was something that was applauded and admired. I married my high school sweetheart, she's sitting right there, Jane, shortly before graduating from college. I started a fruitful career in the business world. My career allowed me to travel internationally. I received a lot of accolades and prestige, and we were rewarded financially. You see, the system worked pretty good for me. Jane and I were blessed with 3 beautiful and healthy children. We lived in comfortable homes in the suburbs. We attended church regularly and were involved in various Bible studies and different family events. Family, church, and my career were the dominant factors in our life. Since my high school days, I was always a conservative Republican, and I was always very interested in national politics. Ronald Reagan was my hero. I defended Richard Nixon until he broke my heart. I listened to Rush Limbaugh. I was an advocate. I listened attentively to Fox News. And when I saw people that the system didn't work for, or the system wasn't working for, I viewed that and I chalked it up to poor choices and a bad work ethic. As my children grew into young adults, they would challenge my outlook and thinking. They questioned, how did I reconcile the words of Jesus about caring for the poor and the disadvantaged with our country club lifestyle? It's always humbling when your children challenge you and often use the same words that you used to teach them against you. One of our daughters and her husband adopted 7 inner city children here in the Pittsburgh area, ranging from an age of 1 year old up to young adults. All but one of those were black children. This is not what Jane and I had thought our family would look like. But over time, we grew to love them so much, more than we ever thought we could. And whether it's pushing me in the swimming pool and hearing them laugh, or cuddling next to me when we read a story, they are my grandchildren. I was fortunate to retire at age 60 in 2014. If you'll remember, that was the summer the deaths of Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, and Eric Gardner captured my attention. The riots in Ferguson, Missouri, and the rise of Black Lives Matter were really starting to disturb me. As I watched these events unfold, a deep uneasiness began to stir inside of me. It dawned on me that these cute, precious little grandchildren of mine were going to be young black teenage men someday. And it scared me. And I realized, I gotta know more about this. It dawned on me, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I started to study. So I started investigating the history, causes, and incidences of racial tension in our country. It led me to read and discover things about our economics, our justice system, housing policies, poverty, drug abuse, white privilege, and more. I listened to podcasts. I attended lectures. And I started watching and listening to different television shows than I had before. Quite honestly, I was in disbelief that so much of what I thought I knew about economics and history and justice was incomplete and misleading in so many ways. It began to dawn on me that the social disparities were not the result of laziness and poor choices, but that our laws, culture, and institutions were grossly unfair to so many of us. It shook me to the core that so much of what I believed was built on half-truths and a distorted history. And I had to grapple with the guilt and shame that I had been so calloused and indifferent to the real pain and injustices surrounding me. For years I sat in the pews and I listened to the sermons about the Good Samaritan. And I realized I was like the religious leaders, just walking forward with my eyes forward, blinding myself to the hurt and the need in the world. In 2016, Jane and I moved here to Pittsburgh so we could be close to our children and our grandchildren. What this did was put into proximity and the opportunity to meet and interact and share lives with people of color. Up until that time, that hadn't been the case. I was able to be in a Bible study with black men and white men, and we grappled with policing in this environment after the George Floyd murder. And most importantly, I listened and heard directly from individuals about the reality they dealt with each day as men of color. I developed a close relationship with a younger black man, and he would share his actual experiences about being black in a white privileged world. On one occasion, he and I were going to go have lunch together. And I picked him up at his house, and we started to head to the restaurant. And he got a panicked look on his face. He said, "John, I don't have my wallet." I said, "That's no problem. I was planning to buy lunch anyway." And he got exasperated. He goes, "John, you don't understand. For you, not having a wallet might mean an inconvenience on how you're going to pay for the meal. For me to go in a public space with no identification is terrifying." You could have thrown a bucket of cold water on me at that point. I was so oblivious to the pain and the anxiety and the worry that my black brothers and sisters live with each and every day. The journey I have been on has had challenges and difficulties. I've had to deal with my own anger and frustration with the white evangelical church, which I was a part of for so many years, as they dismiss any discussion, or not all, many, will dismiss any discussion of racial reconciliation or systemic racism as diluting the message of Christ or being a distraction. The other group I've struggled with has been a close family and friends, dear friends that I've known for years and years, who think we've just moved to Pittsburgh, we're drinking the liberal Kool-Aid, and we've been falsely impressed by the liberal media. But being candid and looking at myself, my early encounters with this group wasn't really good. I came on strong. I saw these things so clearly and succinctly. Why couldn't they? I didn't listen as well as I could have. I preached rather than listened, and I expounded my positions rather than ask questions and try to understand. And although I've admitted fault and I've asked forgiveness from them, some have now ghosted me. And in many cases, the relationship is reduced to just talking about news, weather, and sports. That's been frustrating and sad and hurtful. But despite these disappointments, I must say there have been rich rewards on this journey. I now have the benefit of real friendships and relationships with a diverse group of people. I sincerely believe that my life is richer and fuller, and I am sad for those who view others with suspicion and judgment. Oh, how much do they miss? And even with those that but one of my great joys is the growth in my faith in God. I have a better appreciation of the words of Jesus, and I can look at my brothers and sisters with less of a judgmental eye and more of a compassionate and understanding eyes. My view of God and all of his glory and diversity has grown. And I take Jesus' word about loving God and loving others as the true distillation of all that's really, really important at the end of the day. And I try to live that out with my family, with my friends, and the world I'm in. And even with those that I strongly disagree with, I'm learning to see them as children of God. And while I strongly disagree with their positions or how they treat people or how they vote, I will choose to love them. Because after all, they are like me. They are flawed, imperfect person, loved by and created in the image of God. So I opened the story with the quote by Robert F. Kennedy as an 18-year-old kid that I really looked up to. And I'd like to close with just a short quote from Micah that is really kind of my mantra now. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly.